for the gruelingtruth.net, the top 10 rookies for your fantasy team, and I did not have Jared Goff or Carson Wentz on there. Wentz has a lot of work to do just to make the starting lineup. The Eagles have invested a lot of money in two other quarterbacks, and so there's going to be a definite race. It's possible that Wentz could be on the bench this year. You really don't know what you got there, so at this point, it's hard to just pencil him in as the game one starter. Goff is more likely to be a starter, but like you said, with the 32nd offense, there's not a lot of confidence. I wouldn't say the Rams wouldn't be inspiring fantasy owners with a ton of confidence that they're going to have a high-powered offense. I mean, they got Todd Gurley, no question. That's going to help him. But we don't know, for the most part, who he's throwing to. I mean, Tavon Austin is there.
Right.
Kenny Britt is there. But, I got a lot of unproven guys there, so I wouldn't put those guys right now in the top 10. A guy that I did put in the top 10 was Paxton Lynch from the Broncos. I put him in the top 10 because I think he has a much more likely path to producing fantasy points. He has to beat out Mark Sanchez. I do think it's possible that he may not really get into the starting lineup and get a groove on until midseason. So maybe he's a guy that's sitting out there on your watch list. But once he gets out there, he's got really good receivers to throw to. I think he's got the best chance
Absolutely.
At this point right now to get fantasy points.
Yeah. On Lynch, I'd say great dynasty pickup, great late round pickup in regular fantasy. Probably even, I would guess, in the second half of the season, he's going to be a popular daily fantasy play against, like, for example, when the Chargers come to town late in the season. I mean, that's going to be a great play for 1 week in daily fantasy. I'm sure of it. Look, when I saw how late Lynch went, and when I saw that he went to the Broncos, oh, my God. My first thought was, look, if I'm a Chargers, Raiders, or Chiefs fan, I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off that 25 teams let the Broncos have this guy. I'm pissed off that the Jets didn't trade up like they were rumored they were going to. And I'm pissed off at the Rams for trading up. I mean, the Rams would have snagged this guy, at 10 or I forget exactly where they were picking before they traded. They would have grabbed this guy. I think Lynch is a great pick. I think he's going to have a better career than Goff or Wentz. I think he's bigger. He's
a lot of people would agree with that.
Bit rougher, but he's playing under frickin' John Elway. He's going to get every chance in the book, and he's got a Super Bowl team in place waiting for him. This isn't a situation where it's Terrell Davis's team. When the Broncos last won the Super Bowl and had a handover to a new quarterback. It's not like that. This is the defense's team. He's going to even have time to develop with a contender. Great, brilliant situation for Lynch, and I think a nice pickup in any form of fantasy for that second half of the season this year. Absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, I think probably a good Dynasty League pickup. Probably good for those one-day fantasy leagues, but even in your PPR leagues, there's a good chance he could go undrafted. You probably don't need to spend anything higher than, I don't know, a lot of leagues have like 15 rounds, 16 rounds, somewhere in there. I wouldn't spend higher than the 13th on him. Get him at the bargain basement. Just have him on your watch list and just see what happens. Maybe pick him up week 7, week 8. I bet that he's going to be a popular wire pickup mid-season.
Oh yeah. He's gonna start, I think, the majority of leagues on the waiver wire. I think you'd have to have a pretty big league, maybe 14 or so, before he's guaranteed to be a second stringer on some fantasy team. But I think, the majority of your normal-sized leagues, they're going to start with him on waiver. Yeah.
Well, do you have a player that you think is a pretty much a lock to go somewhere in the first 10 rounds that can give fantasy owners some confidence that they can get some points immediately with?
Wow, points immediately. That's tough. I mean, like I was talking about before, I had no doubt about Amari Cooper. I took him way quicker than was recommended, and I was very happy about that. I just thought he had the look. What worries me this year is that there's so damn many of these high wide receiver choices, especially. There's just so much of this, and I know that at least half of these guys are not going to pan out, and it's just like spinning the wheel.
Right.
I would say watch the preseason. I mean, you pointed out 3 wide receivers that are worth a look, but I'm not sure that they're top picks. I'm thinking here about Will Fuller of Houston, Sterling Shepard of the Giants, and the real mystery is Laquan Treadwell. I like Fuller and Shepard for PPR leagues because here are 2 guys that are both playing under studs, at wide receiver.
Right.
So I bet they're going to be number 2 wide receiver. But those number 1 wide receivers don't have much after them. Especially you look at the Giants. Ruben Randall is gone. Victor Cruz is still a question mark from some brutal injuries. And here's the thing about the Giants, and this is the mind blower. Every so often a statistic comes down the pipe that changes, the way that you look about fantasy that next season. Bill Barnwell had a piece over there on ESPN after the draft stating that the Giants last season ran something like 75% of plays with 3 receivers. That's not 3 or more receivers. That's not 2 wide receivers and 2 tight ends. That's 75% of plays with 3 receivers, okay? Those second and those third receivers are going to get play, right? Whether they get numbers or not is another question. But I like the possibility of Sterling Shepard getting some numbers, again, especially in PPR. Now, for me, the big question mark among these guys is Treadwell. Okay, so the pedigree is awesome. The Vikings have been doing a fantastic job with first and second rounders in recent drafts. I like what they've been doing lately. So I'm sure that this guy's the real deal. But I wonder, A, how much of this offense is about Adrian Peterson, and B, are we sure about Minnesota at quarterback?
Yeah, it's a valid question. I think the more they give Teddy Bridgewater opportunities to go downfield, he'll continue to develop, because when he doesn't get opportunities, it's almost like they don't want him to throw downfield a lot.
Yeah.
It's like to me, it looks like in those games are the ones where he struggles. But when he's able to cut loose a little bit, when they were able to get Stephon Diggs going. Mid-season, all of a sudden, everybody knew who Stephon Diggs was, especially if you're a fantasy owner. He was throwing downfield and he was getting open, and so I think if they continue to adopt that game plan, and go downfield, don't be doing just tons of checkdowns. Go downfield. It's likely that Treadwell could end up being one of those guys that I think he's a perfect PPR league receiver, because he's not a speed guy. He's a possession receiver. He's the guy that you can depend on possibly to move the chains. So I mean, he might be good for 8 receptions a game if Diggs can continue to open things up for him.
Yeah, he could be a good yards after carry guy for sure. I definitely think that of these 3 guys, Treadwell is the most intriguing. I mean, the guy has skills, and like you say, if the Viking brain trust can be convinced to open things up and air it out a little bit more, things might be a little bit better statistically for the receivers. But again, how much of the game do you take away from Peterson?
Yeah, it's really, obviously this is all a lot of speculation right now. We haven't seen any of these guys yet, but we're just kind of projecting, who's most likely at this point to see targets, and who should you at least. We just want you to have some thoughts in the back of your mind as you prepare for your draft. The guys that get overlooked the most are those rookies and those second-year players. Maybe guys like Melvin Gordon, who a lot of people drafted really high because he's a running back. My wife had him in her league, and man, was she bumming about Melvin Gordon all year long. Oh, he's not doing anything for me. Well, a lot of people felt like that last year, and now it's going to be easy to forget about Melvin Gordon. And, a guy like that, he could be picked up he could be one of the later running backs, and he might have a surprising season this year. But it's the same way with the rookies. These are guys that you want to have in your back pocket, for the mid-rounds. For me, the guy that I'm most intrigued with is Josh Doxson as a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have the best chance to put up the most points as a receiver because, I like Will Fuller, but I think he's competing with Braxton for that number 2. Will Fuller might not even get the number 2 spot. He could be the number 3. Now, obviously, like you said with the Giants, Sterling Shepard, when they run all those 3 wide receiver sets and they've already got a very established quarterback in Eli Manning, Sterling Shepard's probably going to he's going to be good in a PPR league for sure.
Yeah.
But for any league, Doxson. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Doxson. Doxson, I'm going to watch in training camp after these comments today. I'm going to keep half an eye on him. I think Shepard is a shoo-in for PPR because I think he is going to enter this season as the number 2 wide receiver. The real problem for more conventional fantasy players is going to be the Giants' just brutal offense in the red zone.
Yeah.
The Giants were tied for. I knew they were bad, but I looked it up before doing this podcast. They were tied for 29th with a team that we'll be talking about very shortly, ahead of only guess who, Cleveland and San Francisco, which is not a division you want to be mentioned alongside with. We have to see if that improves. Now, again, part of this is going with these 3 receiver sets so often. They'll be doing a goal line drive, 4 plays, and 3 of them are these little duck passes that stop the clock. And it's a real issue with time management. But in terms of fantasy, I wonder how many times Shepard is going to find the end zone. He's good. Here's a guy who he's playing behind the poster guy, Beckham, who's designed for the long pass and the poster touchdown, catch. But here's a guy, Shepard, who could be getting 6-7 catches a game and not score a touchdown until week 7. I can imagine that, But in PPR, I love the guy. I love the guy in PPR. I think he's going to get every pass from Eli Manning between 10 and 12 yards. 12 and 15 yards, I think, is Shepard's. So.
No question. That's exactly – I don't think there's any doubt. Another guy that intrigues me a lot is because of the way the offense has changed in the last few years is Michael Thomas out of the New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Right now, to me, you look at what they've got. They don't have their tight end anymore. His name is escaping me off the top of my head. Ben Watson. He's gone.
Yep, Watson.
Josh Hill is there, but he was kind of the favorite sleeper pick on like every draft board, every draft magazine, and he didn't do really much at all. It was Watson that took over. And, Colston's getting up there. His production's dropped. I'm not even sure he's on the team anymore. I thought he was a free agent. But it looks to me like their main threat is Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
And if you watched him at all last year, he's definitely he's pretty much their go-to guy. But Michael Thomas, they don't have Kenny Stills anymore, so they don't have guys that are going way downfield. Michael Thomas could end up being that guy who not only catches some intermediate passes, but he could be good for 7 touchdowns this year.
Oh, sure. Oh, I believe it. Yeah, he'll be starting on opening day, barring injury. He'll be the number 2 receiver. He'll be opposite Brandon Cooks. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, here's a guy you can look at. Again, you have to kind of consider what else they're going to be bringing on the offense. I mean, is there a line in New Orleans? I
don't even know.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, they gave up quite a few quarterback hits last season, that's for sure. I don't know where they ranked, but it was high. So, I mean, that's your question there. But, yeah, here's a guy who will start on opening day. Sure. Yeah.